dog.
What up, everybody? Welcome to Hump Day here at Coffee Hour. It's Wednesday, the 7th of May. You made it. You've made it halfway through the week, so that's a good thing going on. You got the downward slide. Hopefully you made your money, or you making your money, or making your connections, growing your business, preparing for your electrical exam, doing all the things you need to do to be successful. That's what we're all about. Let's be successful. Today, it is Coffee Hour. We are drinking Diet Pepsi today. Already been up early. So, and sporting the right here, J&M, Richmond, Virginia, J&M Electric down there, supporting my folks down here in Richmond, Virginia, electrical contractor. So, I support my brother's AA Electric, but he doesn't send me any shirts. I'm his own brother. He doesn't send me any shirts. Anyway, all good. So, thanks for joining me, folks, here at Coffee Hour. Hopefully you've had a pretty good couple days going into your week. I have literally done nothing for the last couple days. I don't know if I'm recouping from the weekend where we did a lot of earth moving with my excavator, but I don't know what the deal is, but been kind of chilling out here the last couple days. So, but thanks again for joining us and sharing it with everybody. Still getting a lot of courses, a lot of people in their programs, a lot of people submitting questions. They're active in the program. Sometimes people are going a little deeper than they need to go in their learning. Can cause confusion, can cause you to get confused, thinking that you're going to cram 20 years of knowledge into a couple weeks. It's pretty difficult to do, but it's very common. See it all the time. Been doing this a long time. So, all right. So, hey, do me a favor, as always, in the comments, let me know who you are, where you're from, what you got going on, when you're testing, if you've tested, if you're successful, anything you want to share with us, please do. We love to see what all of our normal followers are doing and that type of thing. So make sure you get all that in the comments. And slowly the emails are going out, a little slower on the engraved products, but the courses should be all squared away. If you've emailed with me, you should have your course that you won in your profile, that type of thing. You should be able to access it, things like that. So anyway, and the other things, don't worry, emails are still going out, still being crafted for the things that we need for engraved products. So please don't inundate me with emails on that. You will get reached out to. If we don't have an email, we will let you know so that you can reach out to us and we can get that all sorted away. That type of scenario. All right. Fast tracks for Trade Hog stuff has not been sent out. So anybody's saying, where's my access to Trade Hog that I won? It hasn't been sent yet. So don't worry about that. All right. Today's we're going to start in a couple days of lessons that we're going to talk about services, service equipment, just equipment in general, working space. So we're going to talk about all those type of really important things. These are things, if you're in our Fast Tracks program, it's covered in Unit 9, okay? So Unit 9 in our Fast Tracks program is what we call a bridge unit between Unit 8, which is quite complex because Unit 8 in our program gets into calculations for loads in single-family dwellings, and it also works for your individual dwelling unit applications because it's essentially the same thing, where we're trying to teach you how to compile the information, how to do a calculation, do a load calc, all those type of things culminate in Unit 8. And then you got Unit 9, which kind of talks about services and mass and working space and panel boards, cabinets, cutout boxes, all this kind of stuff, in order to transition you into getting into multifamily dwellings. Okay. And so that ends up pushing you into multifamily. You get to Unit 11 in our program, and it gets pretty intense. We get you to do multifamily for a multifamily complex, that type of thing. And then it eases you into when you get into Unit 13, and Unit 13 is as commercial or non-dwelling calculations. So it gets, kind of then jumps you into that. So a lot of people ask in our programs if it's residential, up to about Unit 11, is really residential driven, although there's more than just residential in there. It's kind of residential driven. So people say, do you have a separate master's in journeyman? Not really. We teach you the code, and that's what we want to do. Now, code is code, but it's the ability to go from the chevrons into your code book, back into the course material, that type of thing, and to use the Fast Tracks Interact feature. I get an awful lot of emails asking me questions, and they're going to be slow to respond. I'm sorry. I just get the sheer number of questions I get, not just from students, but from all over the country, make it hard for me to sit and just answer emails all the time. So that's why I tell Fast Track students, use the Fast Tracks Interact. It's built into the course. That's where you want to be posting your questions, because your questions allow all the other students to be able to learn from your question when we answer the question. So it's a place that you can go into while you're in the course, and you can scroll up and down and read the other questions that have been submitted and learn something from that. That's the whole intent of the Fast Tracks Interact, that type of thing. Not the comments. Comments are designed for comments, not to ask questions. And you can send me emails all you want. If you're not a Fast Track student, your responses are going to be slow, because I focus on Fast Track students. Those that invest in our course are going to get the first responses to be able to help them. That type of thing. It's just how it works. Okay. So remember that type of thing. So anyway, if you're in our program, by the way, this show is sponsored by TradeHog. If you haven't checked out the TradeHog, go check it out. Tradehog.net. It will help answer any of those technical questions that you may have in the field. It just gives you another set of eyes on something, and you can ask it a follow-up question, those type of things. And you can try it out for free over on tradehog.net. You get a couple tries, so you can type in some questions and things like that. Or you can use the pre-done questions if you want as well. So those are all there as well. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Let's go on and do some welcomes this morning, and then we'll get into today's lesson. And again, this is going to be a multiple part series like I like to do. We're certainly not going to cover all this in one day, in one lesson, even if I go over like I usually do. So I want to make sure we understand that. Paul, welcome. Glad to have you here. Brandon, glad to have you here. It is hump day. Glad to have you here. Let's see here. What's up? David, glad to have you here, David. It is hump day. What's up, Frank? Glad to have you here. That's what I'm saying. It's almost Friday. It's coming. It seems like they get here very quick anyway these days. What's up? Good morning. Shout out to all the nerds. Gregory. Good morning, Gregory. Glad to have you here. Tom is in the house. Tom, good morning. Sun is up. So, and so are your opportunities. Absolutely. Every day, I look at every day as a day to create an opportunity. That's what I'm talking about. There you go. Frank says, saving money for your course. Dude, I think I got the most cost-effective courses out there, rather than just getting a little crappy little book, things like that. So, again, shouldn't take too long. Not that expensive. What's up, Manny? Glad to have you here, my friend. Daryl, glad to have you here. Let's see here. Adam, to get you all sorted, 2023 Masters course all sorted. There you go. Good. Glad you got it all sorted out. Marlon, thanks for joining us, Marlon. Glad to have you here. David's in the house. David, good morning. All is well with me. My wife is good. I woke up this morning, and she knew who I am, so that's always a good start. Hey, Brandon. Okay, tomorrow's your exam. Remember, like I said, I think you emailed me about books. If you do not know it by now, you're not going to know it. So if your test is tomorrow, I would not sit there and stay up late and try to cram and think you're going to get some epiphany of knowledge in the last minute. You either know it or you don't. I would relax, maybe work, you're here for code this morning. I would relax. I probably wouldn't do anything else for the rest of the day. Get a good night's sleep, relax. Go in there with a positive notion that you're going to nail it. At this point, there's nothing else you can do. I've been doing this for nearly 40 years. You are not going to learn anything at the last minute that's going to make or break you passing that exam. So I would, at that point, after coffee hour, maybe do a practice question or two or whatnot like that. But then that's it. You're not gonna. If you pass it, amazing. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. Come back. Focus. Try to focus on where you felt like you may have struggled. That type of thing. But I have positive vibes that you're gonna nail it. Okay. So positive vibes that you're gonna nail it. What's up, Francis from Jersey? Glad to have you here. With Erie, glad to have you here. Let's see here. Rob, good morning. Thanks for answering your questions. You're very much appreciated. Happy Hump Day. Rob, I don't know, somebody sent me a message about wanting to talk about energy codes. I don't do energy codes. I don't do the IECC. I'm an NEC guy. That's important because when I teach courses to people that are in states that may have the fire alarm or OSHA, or maybe they're doing a licensing exam, for a contractor's exam, and they say, Paul, will your courses help me? They help on the NEC portion. I am not, and I've learned over my 40 years where my area of expertise is and where I stay away. When I was with NEMA, I had to be focused on the energy code as well as the building codes and other codes. And when I was at the City of Alexandria, I had to be familiar with other codes. Forget that shit. I don't do that anymore. I look at very little with the energy code. You have to be aware of it. I do not. So I don't teach it. Okay. I had one guy tell me one time, says, Paul, well, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage because other people may be teaching the energy code and the NEC and the OSHAs and all that stuff. And my answer to him was, go buy their course. Go learn from them. I am a blunt guy. Okay. A couple people have come to know me. I'm a blunt guy. I don't care about the energy codes other than to remind you of certain things like voltage drop is in the energy code. Other than that, I don't care and I don't teach it. I only teach the National Electrical Code, and that's my lane, and I stay in my lane. That's just my thing, okay? So in case anybody ever asks, I do get occasionally people will say, Paul, can you do a video on fire alarm and things like that? And I'm like, no. Do I know fire alarm? Yes. Was I an engineer for it and helped plan review for it? Yes. Do I want to teach people fire alarm? Absolutely not. There's other people that do a much better job than I would for that. So search for those people on YouTube or other platforms. What's up, Raymond? Glad to have you here from Puerto Rico. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Red Dog.
Woo, 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 woo. Big dog.
There you go. Thank you, sir. Glad to have you here. Good morning, Rob. Working on a commercial hood vent. There you go. You're right. What's up, Tino? Glad to have you here. Let's see here. Jonathan's in the house. Good morning. Glad to have you here. Shout outs again. Brandon's going to nail it tomorrow. Marlon says, good luck, Brandon. I'm talking about. Good morning, Terrence from up in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. Glad to have you here. What's up, Peter? Glad to have you here. Let's see. Kendra is in the house. Hump Day. That's what I'm talking about. And Jonathan's from Southern Tennessee. We got our Tennessee contingent in the house today. Thank you, sir. Thanks for joining us. Adrian, glad to have you here from Houston, Texas. Paul's from Houston, Texas. Y'all know each other down there in Houston, Texas? Let's see. What do we got? A lot of wins coming in. Let's see. Tino says, I love the enhanced fast track course. Learned a lot in one day. It's a lot to absorb in that program. Just remember, chevrons to the code book, chevrons to the code book, chevrons to the code book. That's how it works. Don't even worry about practice exam questions, which are in the last module. Don't start doing those until you get deeper into the program. Otherwise, you could get confused because some of the questions are fairly complicated. And so we want to make sure you always do the competency reviews because those are the ones that really test how you absorb the concepts or the knowledge in our program. So our program, when we used to have what's called a black and a plus program, and I would grade every unit by hand. I would grade every one of them and give feedback. We stopped doing that because people didn't want to, even though I did it twice a week, people were like, Paul, can I get the answer keys? Paul, I don't want to wait for you to grade them and all that type of stuff. And I kind of thought that was a benefit to have me grading them and giving you feedback. But it turned out to be more trouble than it was worth for people. They wanted the answers quicker. They wanted to find the code references quicker. Everybody's in this quick mode. Nobody gives himself 3 months to take an exam like I recommend. I tell people you need 3 months to study, dedicated study before you go take an exam. Okay, but not everybody follows that. Okay, and dedicated study means you're in a program where you structurally study unit by unit by unit, go to code book, come back, go to code book, come back, go to code book. And when you're doing calculations like in unit 8, 11, and 13, you're just doing calcs. Okay. And then you do competency reviews. The competency reviews will tell you how you did. If you're in our program and you're using a competency reviews, they're written in a certain way that makes you think, but they also, you need to gauge yourself. To tell how well you did, you need to do your own grading. So if you use a 100 scale, you do 100 divided by how many questions are in the competency review. That's going to tell you what the value is per question. Then you look and see how many you got wrong. If I got 5 wrong, I take the value per question times 5. That gives me a number. Let's say it's 20. Then I take that 20 away from 100, and that means you got an 80. If you're doing your competency reviews and you are getting scores that are in the low 70s, mid to low 70s, then you're not absorbing the material like you should. Okay, that means you need to stop, go back, look at the unit again, refocus on the words. You might have studied while you were late, while you're sleeping. Maybe you had distractions, you had people around. Dude, you can't study that way. You cannot study with little kids running around, noise in the background, a TV going in the background. You think you can, but you can't. You can't. This is why I've always been very resistant to video only type of training, because it's sensory. You're just watching the video and you have things around you. You're just watching the video. And if you find yourself watching a video 4 and 5 times, that's a dead giveaway that you have you're not absorbing material properly. And so it's a dead giveaway for that. So, these are not things we make up. I've been doing this for 40 years, nearly 40 years. There's a science behind it. We used to track a lot of the data and look and see when people got scores on our tests are harder than the exams. So because sometimes they're written in a certain way to make you think, whereas an exam, it should be just a straightforward question, and they have to give you certain things in order to be able to come up with the answer. These exams are not trick exams. The state exams you're taking, whether it's PSI, Promisor, or Prometrics, or whatever it may be, they're not trick exams. They're not. You may think they are, but they're not. They're trying to write a question so that you can find the answer to it based on what they give you in the question. Sometimes they'll pull on a little trade knowledge. There's some knowledge questions in there, things like that. But no one question or one subject is going to make or break whether you pass. Okay? People that come to me all the time and say, I got a 69 on a 70 passing exam, and they go, I missed it by one question. No, you didn't. You really didn't. Technically you missed it by one because you would have passed. And if that's all you're shooting for, okay. But you should be shooting for a deeper knowledge of the NEC because it's part of what you do as a living. So I don't know. I can't hammer that home enough to people, but I get it. There's still the stress of getting an exam. There's still the stress, and that missing it by one question will literally eat somebody up. And I get it. I get it. But there's always tomorrow, and you will get it, especially if you're that close. You will get it. Just stay focused. Okay. All right, where was I at? Let's see here. Adam's telling Brandon, knock it out of the park. Okay. Who need luck when he has skill, my friend? That's what I'm saying. I used to tell people all the time, it ain't luck. Luck is an equation that's not in my knowledge path because I don't need luck because I got skill. That's the mentality, Brandon, that you need to go in there with. Okay. He says luck. Who needs luck? I got skill. That's right. Okay. Absolutely. Get a good night's sleep. Do not think that you're going to learn the National Electrical Code with 1 day to go. What you really need to spend is the rest of the day putting positive thoughts in your head, going, I got this. Okay. It's like the old John Daly thing. Where's the first tee and what's the course record? This is the thing that I think about when I go into exams, right? And I have taken exams. I took the Texas exam. Okay. I was out of there, in and out of there, probably quickest anybody's ever been in there. One, because I kind of helped write that exam. But beyond that, the reality is you have to be confident, and confidence is the main thing. You have to be confident that you got this. And so there's a difference between confidence and cockiness, and both can be very productive. I'm just saying. Let's see here. Paul, again, Brandon. Remember, 3-wave method. Follow the 3 waves of testing. There's a right way to go through it. What's up, Tara? Glad to have you here. Good morning, Dave. Glad to have you here. Brandon shot back. Yeah. You're not a pain, my friend. You are not. You're getting ready to take an exam. You're stressing out over an exam. You know, I had people that call me every day before their exam. They're stressing out, that type of thing. You got it. You'll be fine. You got it. What's up, Dave? And you know what? If worst case scenario you don't, life goes on, and we will still be here, and we will focus on where your weaknesses are, and you'll get it. What's up, Craig? Good morning. Glad to have you here. I was going to write my essay at Article 760. Let's see. Cray, hump day. David, good morning. Glad to have you here. Paul's giving a shout out to Adrian. Oh, Adrian's a master for my company and one of my closest. Ah, well, there you go. That's awesome. I gotta love that. All right, Battle's giving some more love. There's some sharing some love. There you go. AJ, how much will the whole program change since having the black? The only difference in the program is the black was you accessed it through a different portal. Now you don't access it through a portal. We do what's called a mirroring technique, and you go through our portal. Okay, so it's the same content, just a different access. And because of that, the black expired after 12 months. The blacks and the pluses always were 12-month programs. That's all we ever had. Then in 2024, January in 2024, we released the basic and the enhanced. And they're basically the same thing, same content, same concept. It just uses what we call mirroring technology in order to put it on the page and extract it from the same type of program that you might have gone into before. It's just presented differently. We do the registrations and put everything in so that we control the keys and all that. It's a process that we had developed. Okay, but we still have the keys. It's still the same process. It's just you don't have to do all that. Other than that, it's just a different delivery format, and it doesn't expire. That type of thing. That's the only difference with that. Now, the basic does not give you Fast Tracks Tube, just like black didn't give you Fast Tracks Tube. But the enhanced is like the plus. It does give you 12 months of access to Fast Tracks Tube, the video platform, if you want to watch videos. But again, people that bought it, the black or the plus, were well aware that those were 12-month programs. It says it right in your document that you would get via email. It says right in there that it's 12-month access. Okay, so people think that that's probably the biggest change that people have to grab onto, that they are different. That type of scenario. What's up, Jonathan? Glad to have you here. Good morning, Dave. Okay. Let's see. Goodyear, write the exam. Can't get the answers. Let's see here. David, what do we got there, David? Let's get into lesson. I blanked out on my college physics exam after being up for most of the night studying. Yeah. Cramming at the last minute is not the way to go. That type of thing. Took the DC, Maryland, but I used the Fast Tracks for my Texas. Passed. Thank you. You're most welcome, Terrence. Absolutely. Yeah. Texas exam now is a 2-part exam, and The journeyman now is a two-part exam. Okay, so Texas is making it difficult for people. But I believe it's the right way to go. Have a separate exam for the lookup stuff. Have a separate exam for the calculations. I believe that's the right way to go. I believe that's the right way to go. All right. So again, we're going to be starting a couple day journey. So buckle up and remember, this is going to be multiple days in this lesson structure. We're going to be talking about quite a few things back and forth, looking into the code and things like that. So be prepared for that. So again, hopefully you've got us bookmarked for the next couple days to be able to go over some of these topics. Okay. All right. So after the lesson, the objectives that we have is that we want to be able to determine adequate strength for mass support service drop conductors. Again, typically in most jurisdictions, it's going to be rigid or intermediate. Obviously not going to be PVC. It gets hot and warm and it gets saggy. Even if you installed guy wires, that is not of adequate strength. Typically will not be acceptable to the HJ or the utility. But we'll talk about that. Explain service entrance cable provisions. We'll define a service lateral and understand the applications of a service lateral. It's so important in the field that you understand the difference between service drops, service laterals, overhead service entrance conductors, underground service entrance conductors, things like that, and just plain service conductors. It's so important that you understand these definitions, okay? There you go. Terrence, pass them all. That's what I'm talking about.
Woo, 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 woo. Big dog.
All right. Summarize the minimum wiring clearance requirements for services and outside wiring. Again, whether or not you have open conductors, clearance from things like windows and things like that. We'll recall working space requirements around electrical equipment, things like panel boards, electrical equipment, and so on. So we'll cover those type of things. We'll explain details about the panel boards, cabinets, cutout boxes. Cutout boxes typically a box that may have a knife switch in it or disconnect in it. Refer to those as cutout boxes. Summarize the multitude of provisions related to circuit breakers and fuses. So again, we're going to cover quite a bit or summarize quite a bit here. We're not going to reinvent the wheel for you, but we're going to be summarizing quite a bit. Explain the different aspects of service equipment and panel board installations. Recall how to select conductor size in accordance with table 310.12a. Again, make sure people understand how we do the 83% rule and when it's applicable. We'll clarify the requirements for marking an emergency disconnect in a 1 and 2 family dwelling, which is again 230.85, which came about in the 2020 NEC. It bounced around in the 2017, didn't quite make it, made it in the 2023, or let's just say it made it in the 2020, and then it expanded into the 2023, and it kind of expanded out and changed a little bit, added a little more provisions. This, again, is the emergency disconnect for 1 and 2 family dwelling, okay? It may or may not be your service disconnect, okay? So that's something that people don't know. And by the way, I have a detailed video on this. I believe it's still on our YouTube channel. So go to our YouTube channel, Master the NEC, and then when you're there, do a search in our channel and search for something like 230.85 or things like that, or emergency disconnect, and you'll see that video. All right, that type of thing. Explain the detailed grounding and bonding procedures for service and applications. Describe grounding and grounded and grounding conductor terminations in a remote panel board. Okay? Again, so important, and this should be the staple of your understanding, is when we're dealing with things like remote distribution panels, remote load centers, things like that, that you understand how to do that and the ramifications for doing it improperly. Those type of things. Summarize the grounding of a whole system, talking about the grounding electrode system, why it's important, and explain how ground and bonding of panel boards on a supply side as well as the load side of a service disconnecting means there are certain permissions to use, for example, the grounded conductor to bond metal parts on the supply side. Okay, 250.142 allows me to do that. Okay, but there is prohibited applications on the load side, which is 250.24a5, or depending on what code cycle you're in, it may be 250.24b, depending on what code cycle you're in, that talks about the prohibition of reconnecting equipment grounds to the grounded conductor on the load side, okay? You know we don't do that in ranges. You know they don't do that in dryers. Well, you know we don't do that in remote distribution panels, okay? Now, there is an exception in 250.32 for an existing application that would have happened back before like 96. But we are in today's world, and we're talking about today. I'm not a historian. I don't live in the past. I live in the future and the present. So that's the kind of things I do. I don't go back and read history on something unless I'm doing a consulting analysis of something. Recall the grounding requirements for panel boards installed in separate buildings or structures? Absolutely. Okay. Introduction. Because the service is the heart of the electrical system, the importance of understanding this unit or this lesson that we're going to talk about is enormous. Many of the regulations learned in this lesson are applicable to all types of occupancies, not merely single-family dwellings. So that's why this unit in our Fast Tracks program, for example, Unit 9, if you're in our program, is very expansive. So expansive meaning it covers a lot of area information. So one of the things that I tell people when you get to Unit 9, even though 8's extremely important for calculations, just because you come off of that really struggled unit where it's really hard and you're doing a lot of these calcs and you're trying to say, what is Paul asking for in these questions? And it makes you think and all that. We're not turning off the heat because Unit 9 is going to all of a sudden throw you into a lot of information that you need to absorb. And these are kind of some of the things that you are going to commit to memory, right? So Unit 9 is divided into 5 sections. It's service entrance wiring methods, service and outside of wiring clearances, working space around equipment, service equipment and panel boards, and grounding. I refer to Unit 9 often when studying services, whether it's a one family or a multifamily or commercial or even industrial. In our program, Unit 9 is a critical unit. Again, the competency reviews aren't going to be heavily calculation involved, but it is a lot of critical information that you need to absorb. And it may be low-hanging fruit on an electrical exam as well. So these are the kind of things that you read it, you see the chevrons, you go read it in the code, you come back to your course material. And oh, by the way, this is not a sales promotion for our course material. I'm just giving you a lesson based on our material. You most certainly, whatever you're using, whether it's Mike Holtz or whoever you got, Ryan's or whoever's, if it's not structured, you need to do everything that you can to make it structured, okay? And that means to use it to the best of your ability, and you spent good hard-earned money on it. So if it gives you a code reference, however it gives you, whether it does it like we do in chevrons or whether it calls it out for you to go look it up, go look it up. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. The NEC is a difficult document to learn. So do not think you can sit there and become a master at it overnight. Okay? I'm still learning, and I got 40 years into this thing. So I learn all the time. All right. So let's kind of start out with our code references. We've got our code book handy if we need to go look at anything. If you got any questions, please feel free to ask them based on germane to the topic. Don't try to drag me off topic. If you got a question, you can send it to paulabernathy.com. Somebody told me that it was blocked or not working. I went and checked it. It's working fine, so I don't know. Just go in your browser, just type paulabernathy.com, and it should take you there, and you can ask questions there. Maybe it's being blocked from your provider or blocked from somebody else, but it worked fine for me yesterday. So anyway, all right. Service entrance wiring methods. The service mast shall be of adequate strength or be supported. So first part about it is shall be of adequate strength. A lot of your blue books, a lot of your green books, a lot of your books from, what's up, Jamal? Thanks for joining us. Sparky, I see you in there. A lot of the books will tell you right out in your, if you're working and you're doing a mast like the one in the picture, you're going to be looking at what your utility provides or what it wants as well. So again, as an electrician, is more than just the NEC, right? There's other books that you have to be aware of, and it may be your utility book. And you can get that usually from the utility's website. You can get that from them by going to maybe their office, but they'll have something, maybe a PDF, that is available. And when they consider something to be adequate strength, it needs to be able to support the weight of the drop. And even though most of these drops are going to be ACSR, which is aluminum conductor steel reinforced, because that's the most cost-effective way for them to get from the transformer down to the overhead. Even though we've had a lot of technology in the different aluminums, zircons, and all kinds of other types of stuff, at the end of the day, usually because it's included from the transformer down to the side of the building, they're just going to go with plain old, tried and true, tested ACSR, which is aluminum conductor steel reinforced. And basically that aluminum conductor that is bare is going to have a steel conductor right in the middle of the stranding. Okay, so if it had 7 strands, it has 6 around the perimeter and has 1 in the middle. That's steel. That is your supporting steel component that turns that neutral into also a messenger or a supporting neutral. All right, so there's where your strength comes from. So it supports the weight on the drop down, and it connects to the mast or to the side of the building, depending on actually how your setup is. If you're going to do a mast, it has to be able to support that weight. And remember, you're going to have ice loading. You're going to have some wind loading. You're going to have just plain gravity. All those things can play havoc on this mast. So it needs to be adequate strength, typically something like rigid metal or intermediate metal, thin wall, thick wall, rigid, to be able to support that weight long term. Typically, I would not see EMT used. The argument could be that that is not adequate strength. And your AHJ may agree. There may be a local amendment. Or the utility company may have it just right in their literature. What they want is rigid or intermediate if you're going to go through the roof or if you're going to go to a masthead. Okay? But it has to be adequate strength. Again, that is subjective to whoever determines that. Now, it says or be supported by braces or guy wires to withstand safely the strain imposed by the service drop or overhead service conductors in accordance with 230.28a. That's the language in the code, okay? So my rule of thumb, and it's not in the NEC, by the way, my rule of thumb is if my masthead is 3 feet or more, I am going to put braces or guy wires. That's just my rule of thumb. It may be different in your utility company's Blue Book or installation guide, okay, which you do have to follow, because if you want to get power from them, they're going to say follow these rules. If you don't follow the rules, then they could say, well, screw you. We're not going to give you your customer power. And that's not going to work for you, right? How are you going to explain that to your customer, right? So we want to do what they want. And also we have to jive with the AHJ. AHJ has to feel comfortable with it. So my rule of thumb was right at 3 feet. Anything 3 feet or higher, I'm going to have a guy wire or some kind of bracing. Anything less than that, if I'm using something of adequate strength, like rigid or intermediate, then I was okay. I didn't need anything extra. Okay. If I was using EMT, then I would probably say I need to have some added strength to that type of thing. Okay, that's probably what I would do, and then I would add guy wires regardless of the height. That's just a golden rule. Now you can fluctuate with that, but that was always my golden rule. I'll be honest with you. Anytime I penetrated, I always used rigid. So for that part of it. Now that's only when I had a mast, right? If I went up on the side of the building right at the eave and I turned the weatherhead right there, then I don't have that issue. I can run Schedule 80 PVC. Hell, I can run Schedule 40 PVC. I can run rigid. I can run intermediate. I could run EMT. I mean, whatever. It doesn't matter. We're only talking about the portion that's going to supporting the weight. If that's the case, then we're worried about it. Okay. All right. So that's what it says there. So again, choosing whatever you choose for your mast, it has to be adequate strength. And if the argument it is not adequate strength, then you lose. Now I had one guy say, well, I'm going to run Schedule 80 up there and put guy wires. Okay, if you think that you can get away with that from your AHJ and they're going to be okay with you running Schedule 80 up above the roof for a certain number of feet, just put guy wires on it. I'll let you fight that fight. Okay, I'm not going to get into the semantics of doing something like that because I would never do it, and I think that'd be a hack anyway. use rigid, intermediate. If you want to use EMT, that's fine. Those type of things. But if the determination it's not adequate support, then guy wire it. Next, service entrance and overhead service conductors shall be arranged so that the water will not enter the service raceway or equipment. Okay, so 230.54G needs to make sure that the overhead service conductors are arranged. Okay, typically with this would be having drip loops. Typically this would be having a weatherhead that has a seal on it that doesn't allow rain or moisture to penetrate in and get down the raceway. Okay, so and this is the first one. We'll actually go look at the code. And we'll just go look here at 230 so we can see how that's read. So we'll go to 230. And I am, by the way, in the 2023 edition. Oh, I guess I wasn't in there long enough. All right. Okay, so we're going to go look at 230.54 just so you can see it. So we can show you that we have a code all geared up. All right. So in here, this is, again, overhead service locations. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're talking about, right? And what we're looking at is G. So you get down here to G, and it's exactly wanted to show you that when you see us show you the code references in our program, as well as in the presentations here, that we're extracting it straight from the NEC so that we keep it, you're learning exactly what you'd see in the NEC. Now, in the course, in some occasions, we paraphrase, and that's why we give a code reference, because we still want you to stop and go read the code. It also is serving a double purpose here. One, even though if I were to give you the same information, it forces you to go in and out of the code book in order to enhance your maneuvering through the NEC. That's another reason why. All right, so arrange that water will not enter service raceways or equipment. Service entrance and race and overhead service conductors shall be arranged so that the water will not enter in the service raceway or equipment. So arranging your conductors, okay, arranging the entry. And a lot of these come with a seal that goes in here, and you knock out the openings to bring your conductors through. I have been to installations where there is no seal, and the conductors just go straight in, and that is not going to be adequate. Okay, because it will allow water to enter into that service raceway and get down into the equipment and slowly deteriorate and cause other problems in the equipment. So you have to do that. So we're talking about arrange the conductors to having drip loops, keeping the conductors below the point of entry, because typically, the water's not going to want to run up the conductors, right? For drip loops. Also making sure, again, that it seals any entry into the raceway so that water cannot get into the raceway. It should be common sense that you have to seal it, but it is what it is. All right, next it says, it is not required, where approved, that rigid and intermediate metal conduit be securely fastened within 3 feet of the service head or above the roof terminations of a mast. Okay, so when we look at this, so we'll just go look here at rigid 342.30A3. That's what you should be doing if you're following the code. All right, so I'll just go here. So we're learning the different code articles. So 342, and let's get down here to 342 right here. So this is intermediate. We'll look at intermediate, and of course 344 is rigid. Tell you what, let's stay on that motif. Let's go to rigid 344.30, right? So let's just go there to stay on that plan. So we'll go down here to 30. All right, another tip for folks, okay, is that in wiring methods, this is more in the field tip, but I can help you on the exam as well, is anything when it comes to chapter 3, when it comes to wiring methods, typically dot 30 is one of those ones that you're going to remember because that has to do with securing and supporting. Okay, so dot 30 is kind of some of those ones that you just remember, you lock in. Okay, dot 30, securing and supporting. Okay, so 334 for non-metallic sheath cable, 334.30, securing and supporting, all those type of things. Okay, all right, so here's what it says in securely fastening. Okay, it says RMCs shall be securely fastened within 3 feet of each outlet box, junction box, device box, cabinet, conduit body, and other conduit termination. Okay, that's at the end where the conduit will terminate at the end to whatever it terminates into. And then it says fastening shall be permitted to be increased to a distance of 5 feet where structural members do not readily permit fastening within 3 feet. Just so y'all know, and this is not a lesson on securing and supporting rigid, but example would be in a parking garage where you have the concrete supports and you're at a box and you go 3 feet and there's nothing there to secure within 3 feet, then this will allow you to go up to 5 feet, okay, to be able to do that, okay. Let's see here. And then, of course, the one that we're focusing on right here is 3. It says, where approved, okay, conduit shall not be required to be securely fastened within 3 feet of the service head for above the roof termination masts. Okay, so what we were referring to in the lesson is this application right here. Obviously, poking through or going through an overhang or going up above the rooftop, okay, or above the roof application, that you're really not going to be able to secure it there. So we understand that not required, again, where approved, that means the AHJ has to be okay with it. So again, they got to be okay with the mast, and that comes hand in hand with the ability to be have the adequate strength. So when we say approved, that means the AHJ's got to go, okay, I'm okay with that. It's rigid, it's intermediate, it looks okay. And you're thinking if the mast goes up 4 feet, and you're thinking, okay, well, obviously I couldn't secure it within 3 feet, right? Or within it because it's going up 4 feet, okay? And it's terminating in the weatherhead, so you're like, okay, I got to have it secured within 3 feet. Well, there's allowances for a through the roof, that type of thing, above the roof application where obviously you can't get it within 3 feet. So that is the whole premise of being able to use 334.30A3 to say, okay, I get it. We're approved. Means I get it. It's above the roof application. You have to do that maybe to get clearance across the road or whatever it is, and so it goes up, or maybe you have to have clearance above the rooftop. Okay, there is a mechanism for that, but it is an approval, meaning the AHJ has to be okay with it. And what they're going to do is they're going to look at it and say, I believe that raceway is adequate strength, or you're properly supporting it with guy wires or braces, okay, and I'm going to say, okay, then you don't need to secure it within, securely fasten it within 3 feet, because it's okay, that type of thing. So that's kind of the concept or the way you would walk through that situation, okay? All right. Service heads, weather heads, mast heads, bird's beak, whatever you call it in wherever you're at, okay? It says service raceways must be equipped with a service head at the point of connection to the service drop or overhead service conductors. One thing I will tell you is, see this right here, service drop or overhead service conductors? The first time that I'll explain this can be confusing for people because people say, isn't that the same thing? No. It's not the same thing. They both are overhead. But the big difference is definition, and I'll give you paraphrasing, is the service drop is typically installed by the utility. It is from the utility to the point of attachment, the line of demarcation, whereas the utility leaves off and the electrician begins their journey is at that point of attachment, right? And so from a transformer dropped down to the side of a building, that's a service drop. Typically, even though the code makes reference to it, that typically is outside of the scope of the NEC because it's installed by the utility and it's under the exclusive control of the utility. Now, there are situations where you may have a pole on your property and you have a transformer on it and the utility company says, you know what, I'm not taking it beyond this point. Or because your house or property is further back in the property, maybe they take it from the transformer on the pole, maybe they take it 25 feet into the property to another pole, and that's where they stop. And you're like, well, what is that wire from the point where the utility says I'm no longer responsible for it anymore, and now it's your responsibility, that point of attachment or that line of demarcation, from there to your structure, there to your building, what is that called? Well, that's called overhead service conductors, okay? Okay, so that's service conductors overhead. That is something that is governed by the NEC. That's the one that has the height clearances that you have to be aware of. All those type of things, because that's your responsibility. Because the utility said, I'm done. I'm done. I ain't going no further. This is as far as I'm going. That type of thing. Okay, so that is a big difference when we see service drop, because a lot of people think that your clearances above the driveways, above grade, and all that is an NEC thing. It really is if you're talking about overhead service conductors, things like that. It is not when we're talking about service drops, although the National Electrical Safety Code, which is what the utility folks use, it probably will mirror the NEC pretty closely. But if it's outside of the scope of the NEC, then using the NEC to enforce things is not a good practice. And a lot of inspectors forget that. Okay, they're there to enforce the National Electrical Code, although they are safety officials. So if they notice something that's not right, whether it's NEC or not, on the property, they may say, wait a minute, that line is too low. I know that it's under the control of the utility, that service drop, okay, but I need you to contact the utility folks. And that is totally within their purview to do that type of thing. Because it is all about the safety for the consumer, right? The person who's getting the power. And so, again, it may delay the project because now you got to get the utility people back involved, that type of thing, okay? Anyway, I wanted to make sure I explained service drops and overhead service conductors and things like that. And there's also the difference between service laterals, which is essentially the same as the service drop. It's usually under the control of the utility, right? And then you have service entrance conductors underground. Then it's where the electrician would install those, and that's where it changes over from utility to the NEC. And that falls under the rules of the NEC. So then you got 300.5, depth of cover, and all those rules you have to follow. This is why it's so important to learn terminology. So don't skip Unit 2 in your Fast Tracks program that talks about definitions. Please take your time. And we don't cover all definitions. So even though you may be in our program and you're doing Unit 2, make sure you do stop and you still go through Article 100 and really read definitions. Okay, you really need to learn them. All right, conductors of different potentials must be bought out of service heads through separate bushed openings. Okay, so in these openings you have separate openings. Okay, so this is a different potential, means a 12240. So this is, let's say this is a 12240 volt split phase, single phase system. So this is your neutral, and this would be your two hots. Okay. This would phase A, this would be phase B, this would be leg 1, this would be leg 2, this would be line A, this would be line B. However you want to call it, however your flavor is, however it makes you feel warm and fuzzy, you do whatever you want to do. The potential between these two are 240. Potential between this one and this is 120. This one and this is 120. That's what you would get for a typical 12240 volt single phase application, okay? So this is basically, this code section is saying separate openings. So they're not all coming through one big opening, okay? Or somebody actually removes the little bushing that goes in here, okay? And people do. They get it to a job site and they notice the little insert's missing. They don't want to stop, so they put it in and they try to pack it with some kind of duct seal or pack something, and the AHJ comes out and says, no, that's not going to work, okay? Nothing except power, service drops, or overhead service conductors can be attached to a service mast. You know, I see pictures all over the internet, and I want to think that they're funny and they're just there for fun and they're not real. Although, again, I understand that people are creatures of habit, and they're like, dude, what do? I got this utility line, I got this service drop coming down, but damn, they also brought down a coaxial, or they brought down something else, or broadband power, or whatever, and you're thinking, well, I'll just connect it to the mast. No, that mast is only for electrical. That's it, not for anything else. They have to find some other way to secure it, but they are not going to use the mast to secure anything but electrical, not the non-electrical products, okay? So telephone, television, other cable or wiring systems are not to be secured to the electrical mast. You say, oh, Paul, what's the harm? It's a rigid. It's fine. It can handle it. I'm just telling you, 230.28 says it ain't going to happen. So no sense in getting into the semantics of, oh, I'm sure it will hold a coax, Paul. What's the big deal? Don't do it. Code says don't do it. Just don't do it. No sense in arguing it. Just don't do it. All right. Service drops attached to a building. Okay. We're talking overheads right now. So service heads on raceways or service entrance cables. And again, this is an example where this is not above the roof application. You could have SE cable, which is just a service entrance cable. Typically, it's a style U because it's basically U stands for unguarded. All right, it's just two conductors with a helical third conductor, which is your neutral from most all cases in residential. And if you turn it to the side, it looks like a U. But it basically is it looks like an NM cable, elongated, flat, but it's bigger. Okay, that has a weather head on the end of it as well. Okay, we don't want any water. Now, of course, you could do what's called a gooseneck. I don't see these done anymore, but a gooseneck is where they're not putting this nifty little plastic weather head on the side of the building. They're actually going up with the cable, turning it, and then they're heat shrinking or wrapping the end of the cable to keep moisture out of it. And then they turn it over and make kind of a gooseneck out of it. And then the conductors will drop down, drip loops will drop down, everything, and they seal the end of it. That's called a gooseneck. And so at the end of the day, code allows you to do that, but I never did that. It's too much trouble. I just would get the plastic weather heads, whether I had the ones that go on the end of a raceway or I had the ones that screwed, and then you put the SE cable into it, and then you tighten the clamp down. That's, you know what? I work smarter, not harder. I just never did a gooseneck. I didn't see the need for something like that. Okay. All right. Anyway, so here you go. So service heads and raceways must be located above the point where the service drop or the overhead service conductors are attached to the building or other structure. Okay. So this head right here needs to be above. Okay. Above. Okay. Above. Okay. Are attached to the building. So right here, it's attached to the building. Right here, it's your insulated knob that's attached to the building. Okay. All right. And what you have, or your eye bolt, okay, whatever you have that's attaching, that's supporting the weight, we want to make sure that the weather head or service head, okay, is above where the point where the conductors attach to the building. Okay. And that is 250.54C. And we were kind of there, so I'll just take you. We'll get back to 230 real quick. Let's see. So again, only important when you folks are out there doing your installation, and because at the end of the day, when you do it wrong, it's going to suck to have to redo it, right? So again, let's look at C right here. This is what we're talking. There's your gooseneck reference, okay? So service heads on raceways and service entrance cables and goosenecks in service entrance cables shall be located above the point of attachment. The point of attachment is where those service drops or overhead service conductors attach to the building physically. That is your point of attachment, okay? So the point of attachment of the service drop or overhead service conductors to the building or structure, okay? All right, now, getting back to the lesson, it says where it is impracticable means it'd be damn near difficult, if not impossible, so impracticable to do so, to locate the service head above the point of attachment. Maybe it's the area you're working with, maybe an overhang, maybe it's just not going to work. Okay, you're looking at it, you look up at it and go, because everybody says, well, what the hell does impracticable mean in the code? Because it's used a lot of times. And you go, shit, y'all need to define impracticable. No, the simplest way to do impracticable is go look at it and go, look at it like I'm gonna play electrician for you right now. Ready? Here you go, mic up. I'm gonna look at it, I'm gonna go, you get there, you're getting ready to put this in, you go, shit, that's not gonna work. How the hell am I gonna make this work? I don't have the room, I don't have the clearance, I don't have enough wall, shit, this is not gonna work. It's impracticable.
Woo, 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 woo. Big
Let's
dog.
not make this complicated. And you ought to be able to convey that to the inspector. Look at the inspector and go, dude, it's impracticable. There's no way. Okay, so where it is impracticable to locate that service head above those point of attachments, okay, like it says, then the code says the service head must be located within 24 inches of that point. Okay, so looking back at the NEC, it says here's the exception right here. It says, where impracticable to locate the service head or gooseneck above the point of attachment, the service head or gooseneck location shall be permitted not farther than 24 inches from the point of attachment. Means I can't get it above it, but I might be able to get it to the side of it the best I can. Again, I'm taking a practical approach, and that's what the exceptions say, dude, I just can't get it above the point of attachment, but I can get it to the side as long as it's within 24 inches, because we don't want to have that big old hanging free conductor loop, okay? So that's the concept. Keep it simple. We're not going to overcomplicate things. All right, now, and so this would be a good example here. Now, this is obviously above it, but let's say for some reason, in order to get clearance, it was impractical for me to do this, to get this head overhead above it, okay? Or I didn't have the space or whatever, then it would allow me to go not above it. The exception would let me go to the right of it or to the left of it, as long as I can get not more than 24, as long as I can get away from it, but I can't be more than, must be located within 24 inches of that point. So I got a little bit of play, okay, that I can move it around. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Next, the drip loops. Drip loops must be formed on each individual conductor. Each. God, I don't know how many times I get pictures of installations or have seen them as an inspector in the field where they put drip loops on the ungrounded hot conductors, and then that they do not have any type of drip loop anywhere else, okay, on the neutral, for example. And it's running straight in. It's almost like a banjo string. It's so tight. Ding, 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 ding. And that's not good, and it's just going to lead water right into the weatherhead. It's going to follow the path of the conductor all the way in. It's not good. Common sense. I'd much rather have you splice a piece on that sucker with a crimp splice or something in order to get me some drip loops, okay? Because the tendency is you're sealing off where the conductors go into the weatherhead, right, or the service head, and then with those drip loops on there, you're not going to have the water kind of run up, okay? It's going to get to the bottom and drip off. That's the whole point, right? All right. Not reinventing the wheel here. So drip loops must be formed in each individual conductor to prevent moisture penetration. Service entrance conductors are connected to the service drop. Okay, so service entrance conductors typically are these guys coming up. These are the service entrance conductors. They're coming up to, this may be the service drop. This may be service conductors overhead. But once it transitions here, this is what you run as the electrician typically, and you're waiting for it. You poke them out, you're waiting for that connection, that point of connection, that where the utility leaves off typically for a service drop, and you pick up. These are your service conductors right here, okay? So to prevent moisture from transitioning from here into here and down into here, okay? So to prevent that moisture, service entrance conductors are connected to the service drop or overhead service conductors, either one, below the level of the service head. Okay, so you see these little splices right here. It's hard to see. I get it. Got these little splices down here. All right, they're below the weatherhead. Okay, that's where the splices or the transitions being made. Okay. Or below the level of the termination of the service entrance cable sheathing. So if I have a gooseneck that's turned over and it's bent over, then you want to make sure that since it's not a weatherhead there, you've got the gooseneck, and at the end where you heat shrink it, and then you have the conductors come out of it, you want to make sure that the conductor splicing is below the end of the goose head, or where the sheathing changes over or it's sealed off, that type of thing, okay? Let's see here. Brandon says that's when we do them, I leave at least 20 inches of conductor out of the weatherhead, the utility attached to. Absolutely. Leave them enough. Absolutely, leave them enough so they can make their connections. And ironically enough, if you have a utility that doesn't understand the NEC and they connect it and they don't make the loops, or you don't leave them enough, they're going to have a problem, because it is your responsibility. Because this is in the NEC, because you're making a transition. They don't necessarily have to follow the NEC, and they may cut off slack, but we want to make sure that we leave them enough so they can create the drip loops, that type of thing. If you come back and you don't see drip loops on it, sadly, it is your responsibility. You can't pass the buck. You're going to have to say, well, shit, I got to get some loops on that. I got to get a drip loop on that thing. Okay? I have to at least get those conductors below the level of the weatherhead, that type of thing. Okay? Your responsibility. We don't pass the buck, that type of scenario. All right. So this is a picture of what it would look like with an SE cable version, right? So when you're using SE cable, which again is very predominant around the country that uses SE. Some people are in locations, Chicago, places like that, they say, I would never use SE. People use SE all the time. It's reliable. It lasts for years. It can be maintained. The sheathing is typically the old sheathing. You see some old stuff that's cracked and deteriorating. Yeah, because it's old. In today's plastics, today's UV protectors are a little bit better than it was years ago. They do make cable wraps. So people ask me all the time, can you repair an SE cable? Yes, they do make wraps that will work. 3M makes a wrap that will go around, and it is thick. And it will at least 30 mils thick, and it will be able to wrap that and help extend the life of that SE cable. They do make it. As an electrician, and you see an old and deteriorated SE cable that maybe is exposing the strands on the neutral that goes around it, then you have two choices. One, it's probably more cost effective to just rip that shit out and replace it, rather than try to wrap it with some kind of protective tape that is listed for an application to be a jacket repair tape. It's not listed to be a jacket replacement for the entire cable. It's designed as repair tape. So again, you have to weigh those choices, that type of thing. Okay. Let's see. Prime has a question that says, how many guys here have a utility provider that allow the electrician to make connections for the service? I have seen that. Some people have videos on that, and they do it, and they've been trained to go up and make those connections. And typically where I would see that is in those jurisdictions where, in those jurisdictions where there's a massive backlog for the utility folks. And they're like, dude, we can't get to it. We know this it's a delay. It's going to delay people getting their power. It's that type of thing. Then they may have a provision for that. In Virginia, most of the jurisdictions I work in, they're not going to let you touch it. That's utilities connection. So we put it up there, we put the wire out there, and we leave it. But there may be some jurisdictions out there. Somebody shout out and let me know if your jurisdiction. Now, there's a big difference with people just doing it. Like if there's usually a provision that allows for emergency. Like if something's emergency and there's a storm and something knocks the power, and the electricians can do that. Obviously, they have to be trained for that, prepared for that, protective gear, know what they're doing, being very cautious as they do it. But there are some applications where it just, you have to get the power back on under emergency situation, and utilities understand that type of thing. Okay, so it's different, okay, depending on where you're at. All right, so service entrance must be, okay, so service entrance cable, this is kind of what it looks like. This is what we call the SEU style. U being not because it looks like a U on the side, even though that's the best way to tell you to recognize it. It is basically U stands for unguarded, and it was one of the first SE cables of a non-metallic type to come out. And so it is perfect for this application, but there's things you have to be aware of. It must be fitted with a rain type service head. Okay, so these type of heads that are designed for your service head, just like a weather head, same thing. Okay, it's designed. You strip it off. The conductors will come in here. There's a little clamp on it. Clamp it down, and then the conductors will come out the openings just like this, and they'll basically come out just like this here. And you treat this the same as you would any other service head. It's going to come with the seal in the end of it and everything. So nothing brain surgery on that. However, you are allowed to form what we call a gooseneck. Okay. And I don't have a picture of a gooseneck, but basically it would be this cable simply bent over, formed, and then you would seal the end of the gooseneck. Okay. So moisture can't get into it, and it can't get into the between the conductors and the sheathing because water will run down that cable just like a raceway. Okay. So be careful with that. So seal it. So forming into a gooseneck, and then you taping it with self-sealing, weather-resistant thermoplastic. You could use heat shrink. There's other different ways to do it, but you want to seal that end, okay? Now, service entrance cables must be supported by straps or other approved means. AHJ will tell you that. So other approved means is very broad. The term approved means is very broad, but typically that's going to be straps that are listed for use with SE cable, because that is a fitting to be used with SE cable. And you're going to put these, they have 1 holes, 2 holes. They have straps that go over the entire cable. It has a hole on each end. They have simple one side straps with 1 hole. Bunch of different ways to do this. Approved means, and you have to secure it, okay, supporting, put these in within 12 inches, okay, of every service head or gooseneck, okay. So see, here's the gooseneck. So I have to have within 12 inches right here. See that? So I have to have it. So exam question, okay? Even though I might be securing the cable to the weather head or the service head, in the service head, I still have to have, okay, and this is going to be secured. It's going to be mounted to the wall. Not going to be hanging off the wall. It has holes on it. You mount it to the wall, okay, on the side of the building. Then you can go and you have to have one within 12 inches, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to continue to secure this SE cable every 30 inches or less. You don't have to. You can go every 20 inches if you want to aesthetically, however you want to do it. So service entrance cable must be supported at intervals not exceeding 30 inches. That's in 230.51a. You'll notice that this is not under what? It's not under the requirements for SE 338, which is SE cable. You notice this is under 230. Okay, important distinction, and that might help you in an exam when you're looking for securing and supporting. Say Paul said securing and supporting is over in dot 30, and you're thinking, well, but this rule is not in dot 30. Okay, so there you go. So there you go. So here requirement, and then you'll notice that right here. Same rule right here, within 12 inches of its termination, right here, okay? All right, same side over here, within 12 inches, okay? And then down here, this is where it turns into the building, okay? So it happens to be within 12 inches of here, but you have this strap within 12 inches right here. Okay, conductors, let's see here. So we got off, let's go on and leave it right here, because then we'll transition into conductors that are considered outside of the building. That is kind of throwing us into a totally different topic, okay? So let's see here. What do we got? Let's see. No offense, but I think I watched something on YouTube of a company doing an installation at the inspector's house. So they said utility company allowed it. I could be wrong. I'm not sure. I guess I'm not following the conversation, so must be a little side conversation going on. Okay. Oh, they may have allowed them to make their connections to the. Okay. Again, that may be something that's allowed. It's not. NEC doesn't get involved in who can make those connections, whether or not the utility leaves it, and then the electrician makes those connections. Utility is going to always make those connections unless it's an application where it's conductors that are overhead service conductors. And in that case, the connection powering it is somewhere else on the property. You're making the connection on the property to overhead service conductors, which again are under the scope of the NEC. So you would be making those. It's the service drops that typically utility connections, they're going to make that connection and you're not going to mess with it. But I get it. Some jurisdictions may allow you to make that connection. Okay. But again, it's not in the NEC, and that is jurisdiction and utility specific. So if you want to make those kind of connections, make sure you check with your utility to do that. Okay. All right. Like I told you, we're moving through this process. Tomorrow we'll get into outside conductors considered outside the building, and we'll dig even a little deeper into these topics. Let's go on and give some stuff away here real quick because I've already kept you over an hour. And I want to be good stewards of your time. I realize that sometimes I get extremely long-winded. And we are covering a lot of stuff. Okay, so I want to make sure that I, again, don't overload you. That type of thing. Okay. All right. Give away some wire waffles. And Rob, I got you. You didn't need the wire waffle. I can appreciate that, folks. If any of you win anything and you don't need it or you don't want it, just let us know. We'll either spin again or I'll let you have a choice and you can be in a drawing for one of the other items if you want. I'm not picky on that. But I appreciate that because Rob, deals with solar and stuff like that. And he's like, dude, the wire waffle, as neat as it is, it would just gather dust. We really only want people that are probably going to use it and give it a try and let the inspectors put their eyes on it. That's the real reason we're giving a lot of these away, okay? It's also going to be available on Racketeer, by the way. I think that's who their distributor is going to be if you want it. Or you can get it from their website as well. All right, let's spin again. Congratulations on that drawing. People are loving the Trade Hog. I got an email the other day from a guy who it's literally saved him an inspection. And he was having an argument with an inspector. He pulled it out, he put it in there and showed the inspector. And the inspector said, okay, I'm okay with it. That's a first for Trade Hog, but it worked for him. Okay, let's see here. Erie says, how is my mini excavator? It's sat there for the last couple of days, but it has worked perfectly. People that know, I got a 1.7 ton mini excavator. We're building a garage out here, and I was clearing some of the land and removing some stumps. I learned a valuable lesson. I probably should have just left the damn stumps in the ground. I mean, it's not like once concrete's over it, they're going to grow, right? It's not like it's going to grow up through the concrete floor. It's a lot of work removing these stumps. So I probably should have just cut them off flush with the ground and just left it. But I'm not a builder. I don't know what the best course of action. My thought was logically, let's just remove the stump. But I'm learning that maybe that wasn't the best thing. I've gotten good at the excavator, but by no means a pro. Dynamite. Now that would be fun. I think I'd probably have a little bit of a problem getting a permit to do that, but yeah, that would be fun though. Let's see here. Let's see here. Okay, so David, you're in there for the Trade Hog. Let's go. You might win one, Brandon. Brandon says that he can't make that. I'm the same way, dude. I'm the same way.
Woo, 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 woo. Big dog.
All right, Red Dog. You are in the drawing for the knife. And when that time comes, we'll hopefully have a bigger knife. If not, we got the smaller one. But we'll give you a choice. But you're in the drawing for the knife. That type of thing. But Brandon, yes, the Ultimate Decision coin has saved a mini dinner night for me and my wife because she just literally cannot make up her mind. And bless her heart. And this is not new because of the Alzheimer's. It's always been that way. Me and her, like, I want to go here. She wants to go there. I'm like, or she'll go, I don't care. And I'm like, well, where do you want to go? I don't care. I'm like, okay, let's flip a coin. And that's what we use that coin for. And other things, okay? We flipped it the other day. My son was trying to ask me for money, and most people know I do not have a relationship with my son after he threatened to kill me a couple years ago. He did reach out and wanted some money, and I looked at my wife and I said, let's break out the coin. Coin said no. So guess what? He didn't get squat. I'm just saying. Love my ultimate coin. I'm just saying. All right, let's see here. What do we got? Marlon says, could an AHJ make us upgrade all the breakers, and the scope of the work was caused by a hurricane flood? I do not think so. Again, AHJs could do anything that they want. It's whether or not you push back about it. If the breakers were exposed in the flood or exposed to rain or moisture, things like that, then yes, they can make you, because then they're going to invoke a safety concern, and they may pull out the NEMA Evaluating Water Damage Guide, which I helped write years ago. I was part of the Pearl issue with using reconditioned equipment that kind of caused a bit of a stink in the industry back when I was with NEMA. But yes, so if they are exposed to it, or there is any notion that's been exposed to it, then yes, you cannot. That's an example where you cannot take a molded case circuit breaker and dry it out, reuse it after it's been exposed. If there's any hint that it's been exposed, then yes, they can make you replace it. They can also make you replace the panel board itself, the guts, if they think it's been exposed. Things like that. You might be able to still salvage the cabinet, but they may be able to make that. And again, that's again, other than the NEC, you have to also remember that the AHJs, inspectors, are safety officials. So anything that doesn't look safe, working without permits, anything that can cause harm to the public is within their purview. And so they have to make those decisions if exposure. Now, there are leeways, like when we have a building that's under construction, you have non-metallic sheet cable and it gets some rain on it, then as long as it doesn't get in the ends of the cable in the boxes, then that's no harm, no foul. And we have letters that we write for those type of things. But if it's exposed to a hurricane and it gets in there, it gets on devices, it gets on switches, receptacles, if it gets in the panel, if it gets on breakers, all that needs to be replaced. Absolutely. Let's see. And Mona says only a foot of water. Okay, so if it only a foot of water, then typically it didn't get in the panels, it didn't get anywhere near the equipment, then them making you replace all that is overstepping their boundaries, in my opinion. Okay, so if they're not redoing the entire service, then those type of things, and that would be overstepping the boundary, okay, in my opinion. Okay, push back. You can always push back and get clarification, but again, sometimes they push too far. That type of thing. All right, let's go. Figure out this lighting situation. Speaking of the coins, Gregory, you are in the drawing for an Ohms coin. And I don't have one here to show you or within reach. I don't have one within reach to show you, but they are a cool little coin. Great giveaways for journeyman and master electricians to show your respect to another journeyman who becomes a master. Give them a coin, the collector's coin. You have an apprentice or a helper or something you want to show appreciation, give them a coin. Anybody that achieves licensure as a journeyman or gets their masters, it's neat to give them a coin. Just like Masons give away coins to signify when they get their EA or their fellow craft or their master, all those kind of things. It's just kind of this commemorative thing, a giveaway that you remember. Especially, I used to give certain trinkets away to my employees when they reach certain milestones, whether it's plaques or whatever, because you know what? Everybody wants to be appreciated. And it's nothing wrong with appreciating somebody and showing them a little something, especially something that's going to signify their achievement. Okay, that's not a push for my coins. That's not a push for my. Go get them at whatever you want, but don't be afraid to give to people, okay? Be to show them that you appreciate them, that type of thing. All right, let's do it one more time. Just because they're getting a paycheck doesn't mean that's all the appreciation that they need, okay? Some people need a little more appreciation, and it's okay. It's okay. All right, let's see what we got. All right, David, you're on. All right, David, you are in the drawing for Trade Hawk. And that is the basic program. There is one on here for the premium, but we haven't seen it, so it didn't come today. So, okay. All right, folks, I'm going to take you back to me. Hopefully you got something out of the day. I mean, we talked very generic about a lot of things, but I think it was all really good stuff. And hopefully you picked up a little of something. And tomorrow we'll continue this journey, and we'll learn a little more. We'll talk about conductors outside of a building. We're going to check your knowledge, okay? We're going to check your knowledge on some things. We're going to talk about underground services next. We're going to talk about the different wiring methods that are used for underground service. We're going to talk about clearances over roadways, and we'll talk about the difference from overhead conductors and, again, service drops. Kind of rehash that, and I'll explain to you why the code says what it says. We'll talk about above roofs, clearances above roofs, service maps above roofs. We'll talk about all that. We'll talk about all those things. We'll talk about the slopes, when you have to have a slope and when you can go through an overhang and all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about that, different pitches. We'll talk about clearance reductions. We'll talk about working space, all those kind of stuff. We'll talk about dedicated equipment space in the next couple of days. We'll talk about equipment like disconnects and is a disconnect required to have the same working clearance, for example, at an outdoor air conditioning unit. We'll get into all of that. We'll talk about panel boards. We'll talk about enclosures, unused openings. Dude, we got a lot. We'll talk about AFCIs. We'll talk about backfed breakers. We'll talk about grouping of services. We'll talk about multiple service disconnects, panel boards, common trips, single poles, cartridge fuse holders, conductor sizing. We're going to talk about installations, fuse plugs, fuse holders, grounding and bonding, main bonding jumpers, some remote panel boards, remote distribution centers, grounding electrode conductors, methods of bonding at the service, grounding electrode systems, metal water pipe applications, rod pipe or plates electrodes. We're going to talk about all that over the next couple of days. So buckle the freak up because we got it going on. Hey, man, I appreciate all of you. Catch us tomorrow. Share it with your friends. Let everybody know. Coffee Hour is the place to be. Peace. Okay, you know I can't go anywhere without explaining something to somebody when they see it at the last minute. A service lateral. Service lateral is the portion that goes from the utility transformer to the point of attachment at the house or at the building underground. That is outside the scope of the NEC. That means utility runs it. So it's from a pad-mounted transformer, or it could be a transformer on a pole that goes down the side of the pole, which is called the riser, down underground, and then over to the point of attachment on the building. So where it was overhead, the point of attachment was overhead service conductors. Service drops was outside of the scope of the NEC. Service lateral is the same thing as the service drop. It's just for underground. So it is under the purview of the utility. So it runs from a transformer over to the point of attachment on the building. Unless just like the overhead, unless the transformer's on the property and your house or building is too far into the property that the utility says, I'm not going that far. I'm not going to go all the way that far. So we'll go 50 feet and I'll put a pad and then your electrician can take over from there. So the service lateral would go from the utility to that pad and then the electrician takes over and then that's where it's called underground service entrance conductors. From that pad to the point of attachment on the side of the building. We'll talk about all that tomorrow when we're talking about underground. But I got to give you that, Brandon, because you're getting ready to take your exam. Positive vibes for you, my friend. You're going to nail it. Stay strong. All right, folks, just a little extra. Catch you tomorrow.